Welcome back. Game one was looking very clean until it wasn't. But regardless, Team Secret, who were leading the whole game, did end up coming out on top despite the little bit of mess. Welcome back to the VCS English Analyst Desk. I'm Carys. With me is Your Way and Clockwork. Your Way, what was your take on that first game?
I think it definitely depicted our analysis from early on. Like, Secret just looked like the better team from start to finish. They looked like the heavy favorites they are. They looked exactly like we expected them to look, maybe even more dominant in the early game, especially because I thought their early game wasn't that great of a strength. But then they also showed the tendencies Clockwork indicated when he predicted 3-1, saying, well, they should win all the games, but they can also throw a game. And it was not super close to a throw, but we definitely saw them struggling a little bit with closing out cleanly. So, yeah, as expected, I'd say, but definitely want to see a little bit more cleanliness in the later stages of the game, because if you give this opportunity to GAM or even SGB, they might be able to come back.
Clockwork, what did you think of Cerberus? Were there any shining lights?
This is very hard to say because the early game from their side was a complete disaster. They did not manage to react to Secret setting up these actions, these dives, spearheaded by both Hero and Artifact, and then Penguin following up in the early jungle. And Cerberus had no answer to that. The Nocturne pick turned out to be very ineffective. He basically ulted probably just like twice or thrice the whole game, and very rarely it led to anything. So I think they were mostly a bit pulled back by this draft, as we said during this the first part. We were going to talk about it. We have also some clips to show, right?
Well, speaking of clips, I think we've just got the one because we were having tech issues. So we'll just do the one just to kind of illustrate that maybe it wasn't all draft. A little bit of it came down to a little bit of top diff.
Absolutely. In this specific case, Hero is one of the strongest assets that Team Secret have, and this solo kill perfectly illustrates it. Like, even in a health disadvantage, he manages to take down Pose. Very close trade, but eventually Hero comes out on top, and from there the top lane is basically over. Pose cannot keep the Camille in check, and Hero is basically free to do whatever he wants until, of course, as I mentioned before, he gets picked out, and Cerberus kind of comes back into the game. But regardless, the Camille is completely out of control from this kill on, and this is basic Hero gameplay, and we love to see it. We want to see it more because that's what Secret need if they want to also, as Yue mentioned, face Hasmid and Kiaya and such top laners.
And now, Your Way, I know you have a fire burning in your chest and it's going to be pointed directly at a draft. So if we can get the draft on screen, I'll let you unleash because you were fuming about how this one went.
Yeah, this draft is just very confusing to me. So to me, this looks like actually something we've seen across the globe on red sides from some teams when they just over focus on individual counter picks. So one of the huge issues here in this draft, of course, we don't we see the overall compositions, but all these champions got picked just as a direct counter pick. For example, the Nocturne. You touched on this as we discussed the draft. Nocturne, pretty good into Lee Sin, has actually risen to priority in multiple different regions as one of the Lee Sin answers. But the Nocturne really only works in the late game when he has the dive buddy. We know this about Secret's strategy from 2 years ago, from 1 year ago, always pairing up Nocturne, even when he was out of meta, together with Camille and maybe even Gallia. And then you have a super potent late game dive composition. But what is Nocturne ever gonna do when his team has literally no follow-up whatsoever? Not a single champion has any proactive CC in this composition. They are all defensive. Graves can try to dive in, but he has no CC of his own. So this Nocturne is completely alone, and the enemy team has a Karma and Desire. So there's nothing he can do. There's no threat he poses to the backline because Karma has his shields. The Ryze is tank, so he's just gonna smash him into the ground. The Nocturne is completely out of place, in my opinion. It's a very defensive composition with almost no agency. They can't make stuff happen on their own terms, which is something I pointed out after we saw the draft in the first place. So I just think this is one of those pitfalls where you just look at individual counter picks and the composition you end up with just doesn't really make that much sense as a group of 5 champions.
For sure. And again, we had so much more to touch on, but we've got more games to talk about them between. But we are headed into the second draft of Cerberus taking on Team Secret. They, of course, switch sides, but I don't anticipate a huge change in the bans. I think both teams on the ban front knew where their bread was buttered. So we can head in. We already see the Akali and the Hecarim being taken away by the respective teams. Cerberus, of course, now on blue side. They just banned the Karma. All right, they don't have an answer.
Yep. And also, Secret winning game 1 on blue side is a strong statement because we know that Team Secret likes right side a lot. They can use the counter pick and give solo laners, hero, and artifact plenty of options with this R5 counter picks. So now that they are on red side, I expect their more drafts to be even stronger, and that's what I expect to see coming in this game too.
So I really like the Karma adaptation. I think it's one of the crucial champions for Zuhao, one of his best champions. Now Renata rises in priority. We might even get to see Renata first pick. I don't think it's gonna happen, but Lee Sin is also still the elephant in the room. It was first pick in game 1, and it is open once again, by far the best champion of both of these junglers. So they tried to counterpick it last game with the Nocturne. It really didn't work out for them. So I am expecting a Lee Sin first pick here from the side of Fook1 to really get him into the groove. It's his first players, you have to remember. He has never played a players game before, so giving him his most comfortable champion, I think, is the best action you can go for on the Cerberus side, and then try to narrow down the support pool in phase 2 to not be faced with all the Zuhao R5 counter picks.
I'm kind of just quickly curious if you've got... Oh, wow, we are a little bit into the draft. We already see that Aphelios pick. But I just want to very quickly get your thoughts your way on Team Secret banning out Lucian. That seems like a self-ban, a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit curious to me as well. They seem to be scared of the Lucian bot lane, because we've seen Artemis play the Lucian. I actually used that clip in the pre-game, right? And it really didn't do that well. Yeah, I'm very confused about this. The Aphelios over Ahri or Lee Sin confuses me greatly as well. Maybe Clockwork you want to take over, because Yado on Ahri is a completely different beast than on anything else, and they once again don't go for the Ahri for Yado, so I'm already really disliking Cerberus' approach here on blue side.
I totally agree here. We know the comfort, and we know that Artifact is also very comfortable on the pick that allows him to roam and just be as mobile as he wants, and also be relevant in the solo lanes as later. So Team Secret, really smart pick. Again, the Xayah here for Eddie. I would like, if possible, to see the Nami here from Secret. Also great support with the Xayah. It's not just you can't pick the Nami because Lucian is banned. He also works with the Xayah, very strong lane, and can, you know, put Aphelios in a really hard spot in the early stages. And Secret want to throw back the reverse matchup. Like, that's a statement pick for Penguin. It's like, I beat you as Lee Sin into Nocturne, and now I'm gonna do the opposite.
Yeah, but there's already more backline access for the rest of his team. He already has an Ahri dive partner, so there's already more to play with for this Nocturne. I don't hate Nocturne. I do hate Nocturne as a champion. I need to correct myself. I don't hate Nocturne in pro play. I think it definitely offers a lot of power. Renata banned from Secret. That is super curious to me. I don't really understand why. I thought they would just slam R4 Renata, but now they're setting up for a support counter pick, and we have seen the few Seraphines potentially. I'm not sure if Seraphine makes much sense with a Nocturne composition, but let's see what they have in store for us. Karma is banned, Renata is banned, the two enchanters they really like to go for out of the question. So I hope we're not ending up with an R5 Nautilus, because they realize they want some more dive, but that would be a tragedy.
Don't manifest that your way. You know you have powers. You are a dirty little Nautilus. Oh, there we go. There's the Nautilus.
Yeah,
R4.
okay.
Not quite
no.
an R5. I would love to see
Ooh.
this Zillion pick up, but no, they are going to switch it up. Braum, not too bad. At least it's not a Leona. We're not just going back to that. I am a little bit scared for Team Secret right now. For a Nocturne and an Ahri, sure, they're dive buddies, but you're diving into an Aphelios and a Vex? It kind of feels like diving into the shallow end. You're just going to break yourself.
And also the Braum, it makes it even like thrice as hard. The Gnar to round up Cerberus' composition makes the Nocturne again a bit of a risky champion to play. Now Hero has the counter pick. They will probably go for this Jace, very effective counter pick into Gnar. So this top lane is already quite strong, and I expect the Nocturne to be permanently under Hero. Overall, this is again a very Team Secret comp. Maybe not excelling at the team fight, but that there's everything that they might want from a draft like that. They used the counter pick effectively. They took away mid laner.
Did they use the counter pick effectively? They picked Chase. Like,
You
you
can
could
argue
have
about this maybe after the game, but I definitely
Yeah.
agree with Clockwork on the point of this is a very Team Secret draft in the sense that Secret is likes to make snap decisions all the time. Super decisive, very quick on the judgment, and this composition gives this option as well. They can soften up the opponents with the Jace and just poke their heads in and out of the fight and then instantly pull the trigger on 3 different ultimates of 3 different champions and follow up on that. And actually Nocturne into Vex is not too bad because you can spell shield the fear if you play it correctly. So if the Jace finds poke on the Vex and the Nocturne just executes Yado, suddenly a lot of the potential of the Cerberus' composition is gone. So I agree with Clockwork there. It's a very Team Secret draft, but not quite as hard to draft victory, I'd say, as in game 1.
Yeah, I think my issue with this draft is just the draft bucks angle. R5 Jace, I never like it. Jace is so good. You just pick him earlier and then actually get a counter pick. You know, pick the Irelia. Talking about snap decisions and diving in, remember the Placidium is a pretty good button to get onto them. So I'm a little bit sus, and I'm going to go so far as I think Cerberus take game 2. What do you two think?
So I like that Cerberus are trying something different with the Aphelios, with the Vex, change paradigm completely. I still think Team Secret is in full comfort, so this is a 2-0 in my opinion.
Secret wins.
All right. Well, I am the one Cerberus faithful just based on the draft. But of course, Team Secret's a good team. But once again, we are over to our lovely casters. Milky Rebel, get in there.
Thank you very much for that, Carrix. We are heading on to the Rift, Game 2, Team Secret against Cerberus. And Rebel, while a few of the champions may look familiar to our viewers from Game 1, these drafts are very different from what we saw in Game 1. And I want to highlight the mid lane particularly, because we saw in Game 1, Artifact playing the Ryze, a roam-heavy champion courtesy of that Realm Orb, and we saw a lot of aggression towards the bottom lane from that. But now in Game 2, he's on the Ahri. And yes, the Ahri can roam as well, but in a different way. And that is through gaining priority and then just running down to the bottom lane.
It's a game in which having a very talented mid laner is going to bode well for Team Secret, because in a game where you have somebody that's going to stand there and just kind of absorb farm up against the Vex, not only are you allowing it to scale freely, but you're also actually kind of boasting into like Penguin needing to get to 6. It's a lot slower composition if Artifact can't kind of break out of mid lane on their own, which is something that Artifact's been good at for the majority of the split. Obviously, again, Artifact in competition, last couple of splits has been kind of horrid for performance, but this split has really come back into the form that we expect Artifact to be in ever since went to Worlds a long time ago. It has really kind of come into his own, and so even into Yado, which is somebody that last split was like the #1 mid laner in terms of voting and recipient of votes for like the top mid lane spots, this split looks so much different. In comparison, like Artifact looks like the far more dominant mid laner in a number of different stats and a number of different games. And so expectations here, I think, for Team Secret are that they can rely on Artifact to be able to play out a game like this and have more of an effect that you normally see.
And Artifact has really grown into such a solid mid laner and has filled the void of mid laners essentially, or mid laner performance that has started to occur, I'd say, since Yano and Blazes dropped off form from Winter Split. So it's good that Artifact has picked that up. We got to see some of his stats. He's been absolutely incredible so far. And here in playoffs, I think we need to give a shout out to two particular players. One of which is Eddie, who is pseudo having his first ever time in playoffs. Yes, he had one playoff series previously, which was in 2020 summer, where he lost 3-0 to Evo, and also Penguin, his first ever playoff series. And so far, he's been playing really well as he looks towards Fuke1, but Fuke1 will be able to ward hop to safety.
And very nicely, actually, bottom lane, quite a bit of action. Very low health on the Braum.
Really aggressive flash forward from Zuhao and Huber, incredibly low. The dredge line sinks down onto Huber, and the Braum will fall. It's a double kill for the Nautilus, and there might be 3 kills across the map. Fuke1 doesn't have many places to go, and Yano can't roam up. So it's just a 1v1 between the junglers. Fuke1 flashing away. Boss is making his way over. Penguin gets the kill. Penguin heals, but the Meganar comes through, and Boss will pull 1 kill back for Cerberus.
And a lot of this off the back of a couple of things. First off, the bottom side play, it is just an early stat check coming through from Eddie and from Zuhao. They had enough poke damage into Huber to make this a difficult situation. It actually lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. And thankfully, Eddie not going down means it's just the 2 kills. Neither going into Eddie, which I think is the best possible situation, but ultimately a very losing scenario for Artemis and Huber on the bottom side. But more importantly, again, Artemis with the early push, sacrificing a bit of the health to allow the Nocturne to interact with the Lee Sin. A very rare situation in which Lee Sin does not win the pure one-on-one because of the way that Nocturne is designed as a melee champion in this particular matchup. Changes kind of everything. Right here, you can see how long it actually took them with the shield up to bring down Huber. It was a little bit rough. And again, the trading from Artemis to be able to get onto Eddie, if he kills Eddie, this actually turns into a pretty solid situation because it's the support for getting a kill in exchange for the ADC getting a kill, and maybe you can't run down the remainder of the play. But again, this was also a byproduct of the push that had come out from Artemis. Look at where Yato is actually at in the lane. Can't actually show up fast enough to make an impact in the one-on-one. The fact that Penguin was like 1 auto short, maybe of actually bringing down Boss as well with the fear coming through. Little astonishing that the Nocturne able to play this early, but again, support from the lane's really helpful right there.
And that 1v1 almost pretty much came down to the fact that Penguin had a red buff and Fuke1 didn't. If it's the other way around, maybe it's Fuke1 who gets the kill, or maybe there's just no kill at all. As Team Secret, they've, well, I should say Cerberus have a bit of a push, or Secret have a bit of a freeze in the bottom lane.
It's something big to talk about, the fact that Penguin in the last game had the Lee Sin, had a lot more early agency, at least so far, than what Fuke1 had, and now in this game has already gone in the one-on-one up against the Lee Sin on the Nocturne, and actually tested Fuke1 in the early stages, which is something big to consider given the fact that they're in the literal reverse matchup here. They're going to find out all of Cerberus loaded into the pit right now.
An artifact will get here before Yado. The charm does not land. The dredge line comes through, and Huber has fallen. Sure, you can drop down a Shadow Surge, but it's already 2 kills for Team Secret. The Drake is for their taking as well, and it all goes Secret's way.
And what are we talking about at the very beginning of the game? Artifact, the individual ability to get out of lane faster than Yado will. Maybe a byproduct a bit of the Ahri versus the Vex matchup, but also very heavily based on the fact that Artifact willing to make these sacrifices, willing to make more of a move quick to make sure that the team wins out the fight. Yes, the Shadow Surge came out. Yes, Yado might have had an impact in the right circumstances if the fight's a little bit more even, but it's not. This kickoff to this fight allows for Eddie to put feathers in the right position, allows for Penguin to throw in multiple target damage. And this means a lot of Cerberus on their retreat just gets cut off from this roam from the mid lane.
And this is with Artifact not even landing the charm at the start of the fight.
It's astonishing to think of how much more could have been done if the charm ends up getting landed, but the thing was, it didn't really matter. All they needed to do was slow down. Artifact really just needed to stand in their way to make sure they weren't able to walk out freely, to ensure that Penguin could drop a Q, Eddie could drop down a couple of feathers, and that was all that was necessary. Yado also didn't have a good angle to Shadow Surge to almost bringing down Penguin, but even in that case, again, you're losing the massive play, you're losing the dragon potentially out of the control of what you had on the bottom side of the map, and that compounded with additional gold lead into members on the side of Team Secret is still just completely taking you out of any kind of pressure that you would have had across the map as Cerberus, who once again, early game is failing even though you take the Lee Sin in the reverse matchup. The jungle v jungle seems a little bit of a diffy in this one, unfortunately.
And it's what you talked about in Game 1, the fact that Penguin has been so good in the early stages of the game that he picks those aggressive early game junglers. But the weird thing now, coming into Game 2, the fact that he is on the reverse side of this matchup, and looking at the draft, you'd expect that Fook1 could be the more aggressive player, but it is still Penguin, regardless of the matchup, who is making the earlier plays, who is finding and assisting Team Secret in getting and generating these leads over Cerberus. Now, yeah, exactly. Everything. They're looking for the Rift Herald now, but they're just going to go straight on to Zoo. How they kick the Nautilus. Surely he will fall. Indeed he will, but the Paranoia has been dropped down. It's a 1-for-1, and Team Secret get the Herald as well.
You're okay with this? Because, again, it is a trade of mid laner being off the board and toward for support being taken off the board, and the Rift Herald in your back pocket, as well as health being dropped off of Boss. It means the Team Secret is striking in multiple areas. The roam up from Artemis and Huber saved this play, I think, a lot more than what it would have normally, just because, again, they get to catch this wave instead of having it go to the Void, and that's, minions that don't go to Yado. One problem I do have right now, actually, I'll hang out for a second, just because a bit of a play to topside. Fook1, it does burn the flash of Hero, so finally a little bit of impact somewhere on this map from Fook1, who just hasn't been able to prior. But I want to talk about ramifications of some of what happened right here, because obviously, like, one of the biggest things that I'm noticing is, again, Artifact getting out of lane very quickly. Artifact is forcing Yado to take Merc Treads very quickly in this matchup because of all the trade damage that the Ahri is able to put down the kill threat onto Yado. It's not abnormal to tell the build path, but building them so quickly, I'm pretty sure that I didn't see Artifact build boots at all. This is the back timer. I'm looking for AP being built instead of anything else. And the reason why I like this a lot more is, again, that wave clear breakpoint that Artifact is going to be operating on is so much significantly better when you have better cooldowns with Lucidities and you have the early Lost Chapter and additional AP. It means that it's even harder for Yado to get roaming faster than Artifact, who's been able to make a lot more things happen on the Ahri pick than what Yado has been able to on the Vex.
Fook1 looking towards his bottom side. Huber wasn't able to land the Winter Spite onto Eddie, but Eddie stepping forward. Will he step forward far enough for Fook1 to look for a play? And it seems that the answer to that is no.
Fook1 is standing in a position to try to gank Eddie, but again, Eddie's got every defensive tool in the world. The flash, the heal, the ultimate, everything. There's almost no way as Fook right there to actually make a play happen unless you get like the best kick in the entire world directly into the CC from Braum, but it's very unlikely you can time that one, so unfortunately not going to come through. As again, the Lee Sin just stands idly by as everything else on the map is starting to kind of progress around him. Down 20 minions right now. Every lane currently in a CS advantage, or bottom lane is the only one where things are actually fully even. It's a little insane that Team Secret, once again, we're approaching the 15-minute mark. They maintained in the last game that 15-minute mark gold advantage is a 100% win rate. Cerberus got to find some action on the map to be able to turn that around. I know stats aren't everything, but it's super hard to see how Team Secret end up losing a game when they've got an advantage with a team like this.
We like to talk about the fact that if Team Secret are ahead at 15 minutes, they will win. They haven't dropped a single game when they are ahead at 15 minutes. I do wonder as well if the converse is actually true. How many games have they won when they're behind at 15 minutes? I don't know if you know that one, Rebel.
I don't know that one off the top of my head. What I do know is that their average goal lead is 300 at 15 minutes, which means that they're oftentimes winning more than anything else. But I have to assume that, like, at least they've taken one game. Again, it's really hard to say, like, a definitive 100% stat that you would win every game and lose every game, of course, that you're behind in gold. I don't think that Team Secret is a team that can't come from behind, though, as long as they're within striking distance. Mostly because, again, they play very clean League of Legends. They make good decisions most of the time, and oftentimes they kind of understand what their composition needs to accomplish. So those things usually bode well.
Featherstorm dropped down, everything thrown onto Artemis, and it is Zuhao who once again picks up the kill, his third of the game. Huber and the rest of Cerberus trying to force Team Secret away from aggressing any further, and Secret will just content themselves with picking up the Drake, but they're going to walk into a brush, and surely this just gets a turn back around. Artifact dropping down and damage, but Penguin and Eddie not quite close enough to follow in, and Cerberus will be able to just get the single pick onto Zuhao.
But it is the second dragon now in the favor of Team Secret, and even better, it's an Infernal Soul that they've brought out here. Gonna rush into the mid lane with the first Rift Herald that is available.
Artifact needs a Sonic Wave, but Cerberus can't go any further.
Right.
The Rift Herald will crash in and grant plates over to Team Secret. But I think I want to start bringing up something now, and that is Artifact and the lack of charms landing.
When we're tracking cool, we can't do this, right? Like we've had this discussion with VCS before. We had this discussion. I know Tim likes to clown me about the Akali E when I brought it up about Ozman. Yeah, when it comes to individual skill shots, you have to consider that like you can use them for reasons other than just tagging them. Obviously, most of the time tagging them is the important one, but using them to be able to create space is also a very beneficial thing. So let's call it at that and nothing else, because obviously Artifact has had more than enough influence in this game to not try to criticize him based on just a couple of terms missing.
Look, the only reason I do, because I generally like to be rather positive on players. The only reason I'm bringing up the negative side is because he's been so good. So it's still overall a positive show for Artifact, but I'll be keeping my eyes to see on whether any of those zoning charms do come through in the next few minutes.
I have a bigger kind of systematic thing to talk about, which is that this is the second game in a row that Cerberus has had a disadvantage in the bottom lane. So often in winter, so often even in previous iterations, in splits prior to the winter as well, before 2021 had happened, Cerberus ends up with an advantage on bottom lane because Artemis is incredibly talented. He's a very, very good laner. Everything works out. Him and Ron OP usually make a very good pairing. They're kind of very similarly together on the same page with what they want to do. That's twice in a row now that this has happened. I know that Eddie and Zuhal are a good bottom lane. This is not one that we would expect to be the kind of folding point for Cerberus in a series like this. We would expect it to be, Pos on the top side against Hero. Hero's very good. Mid lane, Yotto into Artifact, I think is a mismatch. Artifact has been playing well. Here to the top lane, there's a bit of a play. That's a lot of damage, okay? It's just going to be an assassination. And again, one of these folding points we would expect. But really and truthfully, over the last couple of games, it's been Artemis that's fallen behind when he's been the crux of the last two compositions they've built.
And I want to pose the same question about Artemis as I posed earlier in the split when I talked about Killer Queen for Luxury. Is this a case of Artemis himself getting worse, or is this a case of the team or the meta shifting and just not suiting him as much as it was in winter?
I think what it appears to be is that Cerberus just doesn't seem to have much of an idea of what they want to do in the early game, or what they do in the early game gets counteracted rather well by most teams. Here's actually a pretty big team fighting setup. There's no ultimate from Penguin to kind of force, but they're going to look at mid lane. I mean, if they just pull mid tower for this, they're fine with that. I think they're completely okay with actually that situation turning out the way that it does. They might get both. This has been way too slow of a Rift Herald coming through from the side of Team Secret. This is a little insane. If they get mid tower and contest here, that's just unacceptable. No,
they've got mid tower, and now they're contesting. Zuhal will only be able to find the wall. Out comes the ultimate, and the Rift Herald is stolen away. Down to half health is Artemis, and Fuquan is already out of this. Artemis is on about 10 HP, and Team Secret, they get both exactly as you said, Rebel.
And it's crazy because I don't think Team Secret realized they got it right there. It seemed like right there was a bit of a smite fight for it, and then they wanted the engagement after, which they almost won because they had two members from the Tide of Cerberus actually down to like 100 HP or something like that. I think it was Fuquan walked out and Artemis walked out with incredibly low health. I don't think Penguin realized he got it until the last second. He was like, oh, we got that? Oh, all right, I'll go snag it then. And that's why like Pos kind of harasses him on the way out right there. Team Secret didn't even care. They wanted to play for the fight. Cerberus, I think, very, very wisely walks out of the pit right there. But the fact that they weren't able to secure that while the mid tower went down for Team Secret, again, the aggression, the ability to kind of make a very volatile or a very kind of, attacking play happen. We've seen this a number of times where it looks like they have an opening to do something. It looks like they can accomplish something on the map. They can make a more aggressive play. They can earn more than what they're actually going for, and they don't go for it. It's like their play calling has softened somehow ever since like some of the substitutes have come through and some of the changes have been made. But this is not the Cerberus that we kind of expected to come to the split. We've said that multiple times, but even to that extent, I don't know that they're performing at the level that we even expect this roster to be capable of performing at.
And now Team Secret dropping the Rift Herald in the bottom lane, looking to pick up the second outer tower of this game. And that will be going the way of Team Secret. Meanwhile, we've got a bit of a play on the top side as Pos will just jump his way out to safety. Now, we are at 17 minutes into this game. It is Team Secret with the lead. So this is usually the point where I start looking, okay, how does Cerberus want to come back into this? And maybe fighting over the Infernal is their way forward. Another zoning charm from Artifact. And the dredge line comes through. Artifact able to sidestep on the Shadow Surge. Paranoia comes in, but Penguin already chunked down to half health, and Penguin might actually fall as well. Don't forget, this is a 4v4. The top lane is still on the top side of the map. Teleports available for both Hero and Pos, but the fight will just fizzle out into nothing. No kills for either team. It's just Team Secret who are now onto Soul Point.
3 dragons, Infernal Soul Point in 5 minutes time. They've got an advantage on Penguin, they've got an advantage on Artifact pretty significantly. Eddie's ahead in gold. Hero has not been shut down in this game. There are very few ways that Cerberus can take a guaranteed 5-on-5 unless something snaps in the next 5 minutes of gameplay that allow them to put gold into their pockets, which seems even more unlikely as we continue on inside of this series. It's astonishing. This composition is built to be a pure 5-on-5. They've got dive, they've got protection for Artemis. He's supposed to be able to work front to back through a team fight like this, and it just seems like they're not able to get that position at all. That is just a mistake from Fook1.
Fook1 thought there was just one person. He thought at most there were 2, but Zuhao was waiting as well. And Eddie was on his way up too. And Team Secret, they are eyeing up the final outer tower of Cerberus is in this top lane, and Cerberus just can't step forward. Everything on the side of Team Secret right now, and I wanted to bring up, how do Cerberus come back? Well, when Team Secret are all grouping up like this, it's so hard to be able to find a pick.
Normally, if... Oh my goodness!
Oh, the chunk comes through before the paranoia, which means that the follow-up is just too darn easy for Team Secret. An Artifact could have made that an ace, but it was another zoning charm from him, sadly.
This is such a disaster from the side of Cerberus. They get brought down again as Artifact finds an additional kill under the tower. Milky, man. The setup for Cerberus is supposed to be pure 5-on-5 fight. They have not had the bearings to 5-on-5 fight a single time in this game. Not only do they not have the gold, not only are they down astronomical to Team Secret right now in terms of the game, the fact that they're going to be forced to fight in only 2 minutes time, 3 minutes time, whatever the situation might be, that's going to be the end of the game, almost certainly. Like, if they do not make a stand around Infernal Soul, they lose Infernal Soul, and all of a sudden, a Jace who's gotten to this point unscathed, Artifact who is insane in this game, Penguin who can backline dive, all of them get a massive damage buff, which they do not need to win a game like this. They are winning this game ambiently because Cerberus has no setup to be able to put all their pieces together. There's no answer to be held right here. Team Secret is destroying this game.
And when I look over towards the bottom lane of Cerberus, this is just how Fook1 got caught. You look over to the likes of Aphelios and Braum, who won champions to come into them, and our hero getting caught out. You mentioned our hero had him shut down this game, but Cerberus will be able to find the kill. It goes over onto Fook1.
This is something that should have been happening from a lot earlier. I feel as though, like, if you're not putting a bunch of resources in a bottom lane or it's not working for you, one of the things that you can accomplish is that Fook1 can go into topside and try to shut out Hero's gold. So there's not this massive poke. Instead, like, Team Secret has to go into your team. You have to use Penguin and Artifact aggressively, and if they get punished, then there's a possibility they just don't have any way of actually putting out damage if they get caught out at the beginning of the fight, like if Artifact gets bursted or something like that. But the problem is Hero hasn't had that happen. If Hero gets to 3 items and Infernal Soul, he's chunking out half the health bar of Yado and Pulse and Artemis and Huber before fights even start, then gets to compound that with the additional dive coming out from Team Secret. And then what is your answer? There is none. There just is none if that ever comes through. So while, again, one catch in the bottom side jungle is the start to something against Hero, you haven't denied him any gold. You haven't shut the Jace out from a game like this. And so that's free damage for your divers to be able to capitalize on. That's reset city for Artifact inside of a team fight that you were just anticipating to come through.
Now, we are 1 minute away from Infernal Dragon. That would be Infernal Soul for Team Secret. So I want to switch the narrative over to... I don't think Cerberus can win this. I think Team Secret have to do this. And yes, we're 21 minutes in, but I think that needs to be said. So for this upcoming fight, what are the mistakes that Team Secret would have to make for Cerberus to be able to take advantage of it? Or I should say, what are the likely mistakes that Team Secret could make?
I think Penguin diving into the team without having backup, that is to say, like, way too aggressively, could cost them a little bit, because if there's a full retreat to come in suit, and they don't need to burn big ultimates, pretty much as long as they only have to burn Hubers, they're okay in that situation, and Artemis needs to survive that. Number 2, Fook1 with a solid kick into the rest of the team. Here we go, actually.
Oh, they try to find the pick onto Eddie, but Eddie is still alive. As a Glacial Fissure is a drop down at Team Secret. Actually doing a fair bit of work onto Huber as well. Shadow Surge, but the Feather Storm will prevent it from landing. Cerberus want this fight. Cerberus want to be able to get the Drake. Hero is on the potential flank. It's a good kick, and Artifact will get shut down, but Hero is still on the side. Hero is still waiting to go in, and Cerberus are on the run. The Dredge Line lands, and down will go Artemis. The feathers are flying from Eddie. Surely Pos will fall as well, and Cerberus are getting routed. Pos will run for the hills. He will survive. But it is Team Secret who come out on top. Boss, keep on running. You're just a little mini Nah. I think Penguin's gonna catch you. He's just gonna play. He's gonna play with the Nah. He's gonna cancel the back. And it will be Team Secret who get the ace. Team Secret who get the Infernal Soul.
They find one kill onto Artifact. That's the one bit of reprieve you get here from Cerberus. The problem is they burned so much at the beginning of this to get so little done. It forces they just drop so many ultimates, so much resource into finding just the one pick onto Artifact. It started from way back before this. This is the play that actually works out for themselves because they end up getting a solid play into Artifact with Fook 1, which it's a combination of being able to put in the wall, nice kick coming out from Fook 1 to get him the rest of the team. But how many cooldowns had been burned getting to this point in the first place? I think 4 ultimates, if not 5 ultimates, were down. And look at their health bars. They're in no position to actually fight even just Eddie in the right circumstance. Even if they killed Hero here, this would not have been a positive fight for themselves. But Hero was untouched the entire time as well. Penguin didn't have the ultimate, but it didn't matter. He can stand resolute while the rest of his team does all this work. And now I don't even want to continue on in terms of narrative of this game because at some point, Cerberus has to figure out what happens next game. They're going to contest right here, but I doubt they have the ability to do so. Oh my goodness.
A Shadow Surge lands onto Artifact, but Artifact will survive. Team Secret will get the Baron. Artifact landing the charm onto Huber. Meanwhile, Hero has already got the killer onto Boss. Huber goes golden, flashes over the wall and will be able to survive. Artemis on the run, uses the Gale Force, but Hero is still chasing. One shock blast, surely enough, but Artemis are flashing out Zuhao. Can he land a dredge line? I think Artemis has got enough space between himself and the Nautilus, as the shock blast is just a bit too wide. Meanwhile, Team Secret just keep on pushing in the mid lane. Now there is a teleport as well from Artifact. There's nowhere for Cerberus to go. Yano and Artemis desperate to try to get the kill onto Zuhao, but Yano will fall. Artemis will fall as well. And Team Secret are marching into the base.
It's so easy. The early game, there's no response. Cerberus has not been able to generate anything, and Team Secret is taking the early game advantages, and they are translating them into everything imaginable that they can use to beat Cerberus over the head with. Last game, it was just team fight, team fight, team fight. This game, it really has just been about some of the picks and some of the objective control to put Cerberus behind in a number of different situations, to the point where now Infernal Soul has just won them this one. I don't know, Milky. Like I said, at this point, I don't even bother. Like with this game, it's almost certainly just too much of a winning situation. 14k gold is not a gold advantage that we've seen not come back from. Like the VCS has had bigger outcomes in terms of gold swaps, but this doesn't feel like one of those games. This doesn't feel like a place where Cerberus is going to be able to come back from. So at this point, I kind of just want to start postulating what they're going to be able to do in the next few games to stay competitive.
Are they using too much to try to kill Zuhao? Because Eddie is here, so is Artifact. The paranoia is being dropped down, and Penguin's on the back line. He's on to Artifact, but he is feared. He'll go golden. That's going to buy time as the shock blast comes through. Artemis pass are falling. Team Secret won the game, and they want it now. It's a clean ace. It's a triple kill for Artifact and Team Secret. Wipe Cerberus off the face of the rift. Game 2 done and dusted. Take us to Game 3 because Team Secret, my god, are they looking clean right now, Rebel?
Fook 1 has no response to Penguin's early game. Nobody has a response to their individual laner, and there is no response from Cerberus into Team Secret. We're down 2-0, but it feels like the series has already been lost unless dramatic changes come in. I just have to say it too. Like, we've had different iterations of this roster. They might have to try something. Like, at this point, I do not know what this roster right now is actually bringing to the series to stay competitive at the moment. It seems like Team Secret is already just thrashing them so hard. I don't know whether it's what the problem actually is in the grand scheme of things. It's a tough thing to watch. This is our winter champion kind of fallen from grace, not being able to compete with Team Secret, which is much more to Team Secret's credit, I think, than we're giving a kind of onus to, which is, again, Team Secret's playing out of their minds right now. But I want to see a much more competitive series. I kind of want to see Cerberus not fall to a 3-0 this squad into the night, this quickly in playoffs, being able to fall out with no competition whatsoever.
We knew that Team Secret were the favorites coming into this series, but I don't know if we expected them to dominate Cerberus this hard in 2 back-to-back games. Team Secret onto match point we're going to be throwing into a short break. And when we return, our analyst desk will be breaking down that series and heading us into potentially the final game of the night. Stay tuned to the VCS English.
Legends never die when the world is calling you. Can you hear them screaming out your name? Legends never die, they become a part of you. Every time you bleed for reaching greatness, relentless, you survive. They never lose hope when everything's cold and the fighting's near. It's deep in their bones, they'll ride into smoke when the fire is fierce. Oh, pick yourself up, 'cause legends never die when
It is 2-0. The second eye opens. Only one remains. And Cerberus at the moment don't look like they have any way back into this series. It's really, really rough. Of course, I've got your way and I've got Clockwork with me to try and break down everything that's gone wrong. Clockwork, I'll let you start.
Okay, wow, that was we expected the Secret to be in a favorite position, but these games being not close at all, like they're just one-sided over and over, that is impressive. And speaking about things that we need to break down, we actually need to piece back together the Fook, because Penguin has just been rolling over him in both sides of this Lee Sin Nocturne matchup, and that's incredible for Team Secret. We wanted to talk about how Penguin could be a weak point in the early game that the enemy jungler can abuse rotations and so on, but she's just been crisp.
I mean, take notes, Cerberus. This is how you draft a Nocturne composition. You pair him with other divers. I know we all weren't the biggest fans of Nautilus, but it made sense in that composition, having another engage tool to make it easier for Ari and Nocturne to maybe be the second way in. And then also, I personally really like the Jace in this comp because it offers a way to poke the opponent team down to executable range or to like lethal range for the engaged champions, because Nocturne and Ari both don't bring the highest amount of damage, but if you can soften the targets, they have really good sticking power. And then Ari with the new reset mechanic as well comes in and just takes over the whole fight, as we saw from Artifact once again. This is a much better composition when you want to play the Nocturne, and it seems like Nocturne Lee Sin is dominating all the scrims at VCS, at least for those two teams that are playing today.
Now, I was critical of the Jace pick, not so much because of the champion. I just don't like R5 Jace. I just feel like you can pick him earlier and save a counter pick for elsewhere. But hey, I'll acquiesce. Clearly, it didn't matter. But we want to talk about these top laners, both of them, and the way they actually match up. We've got some stats to show you. And I'm going to let you run through it and just how Hero and Pos actually go up against each other.
Yeah, these two players have some similarities and some differences for sure. We see, if you just look at the stats, it actually looks like Pos is mostly the better player, but then we look at the last stat here, solo kills, and this one is quite the difference. We have 6 on one side and 4 times that number on the other side. So yeah, definitely different play styles. Hero is or I should start with Pos. Pos is a much more reserved player. He's Okay, this is a little bit of a stereotypical analysis, right? He's the Korean coming in, but he's also a little bit more of a veteran. He's definitely the more stable player. He can play all the different styles as well. Not the greatest on tanks so far, but he's a good laner. You can see his goal difference is positive, only 11. It's not much, but still, he's a more reserved player. Doesn't really go for solo kills too many times. Doesn't really get solo killed that much as well. But then on the other side, we have the exciting, explosive top laner and Hero. We've seen him so many times already in the past. We criticized his champion pool, but he's much better now. And you can see 24 solo kills. He really goes for it all the time. If you look at this KDA, on the other hand, well, he also dies quite a bit compared to Pot. So he gets a lot of kills, he dies a lot, but overall, he's a huge asset for Team Secret, and especially in the second half of the split, he has been able to get better and better, more stable, and still preserve his aggressive tendencies and really be one of the biggest strength, especially in the early game and late game side laning for Team Secret.
There is one important caveat to Pos's stats there. He never played against Kiaya this split. Hero did. So Hero had his stats impacted by going to Kiaya prison, while Pos did dodge that Fist of the North Star. As his stats, he was sharing time with Pun. I mean, I don't know what Pun did to Cerberus's coach. If they're just like, all right, oh, you're up against Kiaya, Pun, get out there, mate. Poss, you take a night off, because that one's brutal. Every top laner is getting brutalized by Kiaya, so we just got to throw that caveat in there. But another player I know you want to talk about, Clockwork, is in the bottom lane. It's Team Secret's Eddie. He didn't do a huge amount in game 2. He did enough, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't the star. But in this split, he really has been.
That's exactly because he doesn't need to do. Because Secret, as we mentioned before, plays mostly around hero and artifact, and Eddie's task is just to be consistent. He doesn't need to be flashy. He doesn't need to mimic Artemis. He just needs to uh, take his own time in the bot lane, maybe even take advantage in the 2v2 that he's been winning with Shuhao in these latest matches, and then just play it safe with the Zaya, for example, that we've seen, just stay alive, be in a team fight, and be consistent. And that's what Eddie has been doing for this whole split, growing into a very complete player, actually. And most notably, what I want to stress is that this player is basically the only homegrown talent of Team Secret. So what we've been seeing, the many teams are trying to bring up some rookies, maybe by shuffling them into the roster and giving them playtime. But Eddie has done so very successfully in the last two splits. First as a sub of Slater, and now deserving his starting spot. Very like he's been overall a very great player. Again, he's not the highlight reel, flashy MVP kind of AD carry, but he provides everything that Secret needs.
And I actually want to build from one of the points you just brought up, Clockwork. I'm the history guy here on this channel, and just looking at Eddie against Artemis as a matchup is so much fun for me because both of these players, both great ADCs in their own, used to be the understudies. Under Slater, the best ADC for such a long time, two-time title holder, of course, in summer and spring 2020, best ADC in the league at that time, and both of them grew out of Slater prison or Slater school, I guess. They graduated Slater school, Artemis, to become the best ADC, and now he is challenged in this series today by Eddie. So that's just a very cool little storyline going on there. I hope there's a little bit of rivalry between these two players. They never played on the same team together, but it's just a cool thing to keep in mind.
For sure, we love these developing narratives. Maybe Slater should try making playoffs, and then we'd have an even cooler one. That was harsh, but anyway, let's talk about that last draft because I had some issues with it, but I was proven immediately incorrect. But let's talk about how Team Secret put together a lovely composition and what Cerberus can fix into the next game.
Yeah, so I do still think that what we said about the draft, this was a closer affair in draft, is true. Also by virtue of the first draft just being horrible from Cerberus, in my opinion. But I think they got some of the key points correct. They prioritized the Lee Sin a little bit more. They definitely looked a little bit more competitive, in my opinion, when it came to the draft. I still don't like the Aphelios first pick. I think Aphelios is just... I love Aphelios as a champion, but in my opinion, he's not at the power level, especially with so many other ADCs coming into meta. You can play MF, you can play Zarya. You know Eddie's going to go Zarya all the time. You can even go Caitlyn, Ezreal, Jinx, go down to second tier and Ashe and so on. So it's really, Zeri is still there. No need to pick Aphelios first pick, in my opinion, and they didn't even win lane. So drop the Aphelios and try to go from there.
And the champion that we are so confused as to why they don't go to it is, of course, the Ahri. Yado, it's his best champion by far. Clockwork, why would you not first pick it?
That is a very good question. I suppose that Cerberus is trying to again go back on the let's put all our eggs into their Artemis basket. So let's give him some scaling pick, cross our fingers that we don't get hammered in the early game, and then in the late game we can team fight and try to come back when Aphelios has like 2-3 items. That's mostly how they played in winter. So setting up Artemis. But it's one thing. The one thing that they forgot is that they could play like this because all the other team also was able to assist the bot lane during the early game. And now you can't do that if Yado can't move from your lane. Fook is not able to track and follow Penguin's ganks, and Yado is constantly pinned down in his lane. So even if he had the Vex, which has great mobility peak, he still cannot impact the bot lane in any way. So Artemis and Huba isolated, and Secret can abuse them all day long. And whatever they are hoping with this late game scaling picks will never work.
Yeah, if we actually just look at the numbers for Yada's Ahri, it's ridiculous. So he has played Ari 10 times. The next highest pick rate in regular season, our stats, of course, are about regular season, is Veiga on 3 picks. So 10 games on Ari and then 3 on his next most played champion. Also, 8 of his 13 wins with Cerberus have come on Ari. So his win rate on Ari, this one champion, is 80%. His win rate on everything else he's played, the whole split, is a meager 29%. This player is a completely different beast, as you can see here. When he's on the Ari, he feels at home, he knows how to do stuff, he knows how to get the game rolling, he knows how to assist Fug1 in his first ever professional split. So, just first pick the Ari, especially now that everything is going Secret's way. You need to find a way, you need to find a strong point in the map. And yeah, there's the Lucian counterpick. It's scary. He's not perfect on the Ari. Of course, he has lost games on Ari. But just try it. Everything else isn't working for you. Yado stepped up huge in winter. Just give him his Ari. Go from there and try to build a composition that can actually fight early on. Because you're getting stomped in the early game after game.
And of course, the issue now is that you might not be able to first pick it. Because you're probably going back to the red side this game. I think game 2 is when they had to do it. Because we know Artifact loves it as well. He played it last game to great effect. I feel like, I mean, maybe you've tricked them. Maybe now that you didn't first pick it, they'll be like, oh, the Yado doesn't want it anymore. And maybe you can, it's big game bamboozles to get the reverse sweep, but maybe I'm...
The big brain mind control.
Yeah. I mean, you can hack brain machines. Like, it has been proven. So we'll have to see how that goes. But while we are still waiting for this game 3, what do you do as Fook? You can't play either side of the Lee Sin Nocturne. I mean, you know my general catch-all for when a professional player is struggling in a matchup in the jungle? Jarvan time, baby. You go to Jarvan prison. You go to Jarvan prison and you gank at level 2.
Gang at level 2, or just initiate skirmishes back to back to back, ult in, and try to make something happen. Even if you die, doesn't matter. You don't need gold. Just be in the game. And yeah, that's exactly what servers need to do. Just make it simple. You don't need complex Nocturne composition. You don't need this like Vex trying to reset and play around the maybe mid lane or the like. No, just make it simple. You're 0-2. You don't need to come up with anything fantastic or specifically try to counterpick what Secret are trying to do. Just play what works.
And in our exclusive podcast episode yesterday with Coach Hank from GAM, he mentioned something interesting about the other jungler, Penguin. He said Penguin is potentially prone to tilting or having not quite the stablest mental of all the Team Secret players. So if Cerberus were to attack Secret, and he predicted Secret to win as well, but he said the one thing he's not certain about is that jungle position on the Secret side. And so far, Penguin has had a decent series, pretty good actually. But maybe if you can invade him early, if you have your whole game plan around invading and tilting maybe even Penguin, potentially there is still a reverse sweep in the cards. It's unlikely, but I think this is where I want to go from Cerberus.
Oh, that's some real good hopium there your way. Ooh, it's delicious stuff. You gotta be careful though. I think you're on the line of an overdose, but we are heading into draft to perhaps dissipate your hopes away. Let's see what happens. The bans are in. Secret have removed the time catch, helping Cerberus out there, in my opinion, as they won't get tricked into picking it, and they immediately snap lock themselves a Jinx.
Yeah, and Cerberus paid back this favor by banning Ari on red side.
Yeah, again, I think they're just scared of the first pick, and they don't have a counter to it. I think that's okay, but okay.
It's release date div.
Pun is in as
drafted
well.
for Cerberus.
Pun's in. Poss is out.
Okay. I don't think it will change that much.
Stuff I would have made.
This button is interesting, but it still opens up for a quite abusable early game. There is Erin or Renata have a very strong lane, so Secret here can very well target this bot lane. They already have the Jinx. They might go for We don't love the Nautilus and Leona, but they would make sense here, or also something that can poke and abuse this bot lane. Meanwhile, they also go for their bread and butter, the Rise, the Lee Sin for Penguin and Artifact. So Secret is meeting absolutely no resistance in this draft. They're picking up everything they need, and already quite good composition is shaping up for them. Let's see Cerberus now if they pick some jungler.
Yeah, once again focusing on proactivity in the early game. This Hecarim pick has been bent away from Fuguan, and he's quite comfortable on it as well, but this is 12-6, so not quite the same power level we saw. Hecarim basically dropped completely out of favor in other regions where 12.6 was being played, so not entirely sure about this. I do think their composition is looking quite scary if you go into the late game. One issue I have with this is only one Zeri game so far from Artemis, and that Zeri game looked really bad. His series so far is already quite bad, so putting on the Zeri, you would think the best ADC in the VCS, or maybe top 2 right now, would carry the game, but it's actually one champ he hasn't really found much success on and hasn't even tried to play many times. So this really needs to be the resurgence of Artemis, excuse me, and maybe this could actually be the change of pace. And at least they have a good win rate on Renata, actually 2 games so far from Huber, and he won both of those. So it's a strong setup in the team fights.
Yeah, Enchanters being banned out there by Cerberus. They don't want to let them answer it. But of course, with Nautilus, with Leona still available, I'm sure Zhuhao will be able to find some comfort. While its mid lane is being taken out for Yado, Yado, maybe this is when you bring your Zoe out. I know it's not a champion that is... Oh, no.
This is very tough. Okay, we did say
we try top lane. It's alright.
Okay,
we hate it,
we
but
did
it's
say to go back to what worked for Cerberus. I did not mean the Renekton for fun. That was absolutely the worst way they could read my advice. How this can open for a lot of picks in the top lane for hero. I would like, for example, something like the Graves, so you can never get pushed in. Camille, not my ideal top lane matchup in the Renekton, but they probably want to go for that anyway. And despite Cerberus taking away 2 enchanters, which in the current support meta in the VCS is a very specific choice, Secret still go for the Lulu. See, this is lovely, and I wanted to see this for such a long time. The Lulu Jinx is a great lane, can still poke a lot. And I'm so happy that Zhuhao is bringing this, let's say, spice, uncommon, niche pick to the table. I love it.
Also makes life of Renekton in the later team fights just impossible. What can you even do as Renekton into Lulu? It's really, really tough. I like this. Even more burst, even more dive from the side of Cerberus. Now, once again, trying the Vex. Vex can definitely one-shot the Lulu as well. Lulu can also hold off the Vex if she plays it correctly, so that's an interesting matchup. I'm excited for this double enchant the bot lane matchup, and maybe it's time for... Oh, it's actually Ron P in as well. So not Huber.
Oh,
sorry, I missed that early on. So actually not the one that has been prioritizing the enchanters with Huber. It's Ron P on the enchanter. That's an interesting choice.
Subbing out Huber and then picking Renata that early is
pretty funny. Yeah.
A very interesting move. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong.
They won a title together though. This bot lane should have better synergy, so let's just hope they can show us their 2v2 prowess, reminiscent of Winter, because it's high time Cerberus does something like that. If they can't do it here, it's game over for them.
Yep. This is the last chance for Cerberus to get anything done in these playoffs. Team Secret, obviously, don't want to let them in for even a moment. And I'm so happy VCS teams are finally embracing these enchanters beyond the Renata. This Lulu coming in makes me so happy. Now I need both of you to give me a prediction and keep it quick because our casters are ready and raring to go.
It's Camille, it's Rise, it's not a secret, it's a 3-0.
Nice.
Easy enough.
I actually really like Cerberus' draft, and I am going to predict Cerberus with a lot of hopium. I want to see more games, but if any draft could make it happen, the Renata Zeri for Artemis to carry is the only way I can see. So Cerberus, come on, take one.
We'll have to get you one of those things that Renata wears to make sure you can suck all that hopium down. But speaking of people who I have a hell of a lot of hopium for, it's Rebel, it's Milky, the best costumes we can bring you. Take it away.
Secret lead 2-0. Cerberus with their lives on the line in playoffs. What do? They bring in the old stalwarts of winter. Returning is Pun, returning is Ron OP, and Rebel doing this in the middle of a series. You know that there's something going wrong for Cerberus, and this is what they feel is the best solution to counter it.
That, or once again, they go back to winter, they watch my VODs, and they say, oh, it is a Pun V9 angle, and they just love that so much that they just couldn't help themselves but put them in. So listen, with Cerberus, first 2 games, not going well, right? Like, they didn't have any bearing in that game. Nobody was winning lanes. Nobody was actually accomplishing anything. At least they're making a shake of it, right? They're trying something, throwing it at the wall to see what sticks. And I am actually on the same page as Yul Wei, where this is the draft to me that feels a lot better for themselves. I think that Yato's Vex is pretty good. I think that Fuquan on a Hecarim means that he is both scaling, but also could make an impact in the earlier stage of the game, while having a champion that isn't necessarily going to lose every single one-on-one when the time comes. They put themselves in a good position. Somehow they also snuck a Renekton versus Camille matchup in there, despite having picked Renekton first. So I don't know how that happened, but that to me is just Hero with nothing but confidence in the top lane. But that's not a matchup that historically has gone particularly well for Camille, especially because it usually got countered at one point with like an R3 pick. So to me, this is the best draft that we've seen Cerberus have all day. They have their old guard from like the previous split where they were the champions, minus Ego in the jungle is still Fuke1. So maybe this is the game where they can kind of build upon some of those that old synergy this team has brought about.
Now, let's talk about this top lane, because Pun has been brought in. Over the course of this split, we have seen POS playing in a lot more games than Pun. And we've also seen POS having a much higher win rate. But then I think the analyst just brought up the fact that it wasn't POS who was playing against Scam. So obviously those stats are slightly skewed as well.
I suppose. Now, just as postulation here, which is yet another funny top lane pun. Thank you very much. I spend all my time writing exclusively those for Cerberus. But more importantly, I think that the reason why they did that is because POS is more of a lane kind of staller, less of a lane staller and more of like a lane checker. He's got enough hands to be able to play against the majority of players. It doesn't work against Kiaya that way. And so instead they go to Pun, who has traditionally been known as somebody who's able to stall the lane incredibly well. That's what he was able to do inside of Winter Split, which is what made us give him the title of #1 top laner over top of Kiaya, and maybe that was not exactly the best of decisions. But that's how impressive that he looked at being able to stall at the top lane. So they say, okay, maybe we can use that tool against Kiaya once again. And maybe that's the same tool that they plan to employ against Hero here. They draft him something that should be self-sufficient with the Renekton. It's not a terrible matchup that he found himself in, despite giving counter over to Team Secret. Maybe Pun actually has some bearing in this game to be able to kind of stall things out on top side and prevent Hero, who's been a very massive contributor to the series, from really kind of taking things over.
Well, we are onto the game, onto the Rift after a slight delay to start things off. You can almost feel the tension, because for Cerberus, let's not forget, it's not just the fact that they are down 2-0 in the series right now, it's also the fact that they are our current VCS champions, and it has been a fall from grace for them. It's been a fall from grace for quite a few of our winter teams, the likes of Luxury and Burst the Sky, who were in playoffs, who finished 3rd and 4th at the end of playoffs. Didn't make playoffs this split, and it feels like the VCS is switching back to the VCS that we knew from before, back in spring 2021.
Yeah, the more and more that we are removed from winter 2021, it feels like more and more of a pipe dream, an enigma, whatever you want to call it, over the course of the action, because of just how strange that the results seem to be in the modern era, which is at least something to consider. Level 2, actually, really quick from Team Secret, want to take an action into Artemis in this. I'll actually talk about this because this was really cool. I like that they subbed in Ron OP. Still curious why they decided to go to Enchanter. I think I just covered that sufficiently. But the fact that another Enchanter gets responded with, the Lulu coming in, I think is really good for Zuhao, who has shown a lot more propensity and development after being a jungler for most of the career on Cerberus. Something we haven't really talked about is that he's the ex-jungler for Cerberus as bottom lane.
Zuhao ignited, and Artemis forced to flash away so that the final rocket from
Goodness
Eddie
gracious.
would not secure first blood. But it's good to see both bottom laners playing with fire, and we're not seeing Cerberus playing overly defensive in such a tricky scenario. But now the engage towards the top side. Oh, that Sonic Wave here. I thought for a second Penguin was gonna go.
I thought there was a chance that if he trades 1-for-1, that absolutely works out in their favor. The problem is this bottom lane is in rough straits. Oh no, Ronopi's gonna have to flash. This is like the third game in a row that Eddie and Zuhao have just kind of taken over the laning phase. I know they drafted for it here because, again, the Lulu is incredibly powerful at the beginning of the game to work with. If they better not get baited in here. Fook1's here for the punishment.
But Eddie will just bring this
dive,
wave
though.
under his tower. Good luck diving Eddie right now. And yes, we've seen Artemis and Rono P playing this aggressively. Fook1, he knows he wants to go for the play. Penguin will land the Sonic Wave. Now looking towards Fook1. Eddie could make his way up, but it would be a 3v2. And even if Eddie had the health advantage, it'd still be incredibly risky to coin flip first blood.
This is the opening potentially for Artemis to take a quick back, go for a Cole, and then sit in this laning phase and try not to die, which is kind of something they haven't been able to accomplish so far in the series. But Fook1 has already kind of stayed around the bottom side a bit more, put a bit more kind of coverage in that area. So maybe this is the intention, is that this is once again another Artemis game, but this time they're playing to him a lot earlier for the coverage to make sure that the Zeri gets out of the laning phase more effectively. And how much more could you really put into it, right? You're putting jungle pressure in, you're giving him a pocket Zillion ultimate. The only thing they could have done even further is to literally draft Zillion in the mid lane for Yato and just have him have the ability to have 2 revives in his back pocket without building Guardian Angel, to just say, Artemis, you gotta carry us. Like, there is no other play to be had. We need somebody to stand up, and they're putting faith, I guess, in their ADC to be able to do so, because like Yolwei had said on the desk as well, you know, this isn't exactly a champion that Artemis has played to a bunch of avail in this split. This is like the second game on it, didn't do great in the first game. Maybe it's something that's gone better in practice than what we've seen, but obviously something that they haven't played all that much.
But if you are Cerberus and you are in this situation that they find themselves in, being 2 down in a best-of-5 series, and you have to put your faith in someone, you're looking to the likes of Artemis and Yato. These are the players who played so well for them in the winter split. These are the players that led them to taking their first ever VCS title, and you wouldn't want to put your faith in anyone else.
I think I could agree with that sentiment. Oh, actually, top lane, a little bit of shenanigans. Pun dancing around them.
He's dancing around, but is it enough? Welcome to the playoffs, say Team Secret. And Pun says, yeah, it's actually quite nice over here. I'm not going to die just yet.
It is a Pun v9 angle, man. He's able to sneak out. He's able to use this Renekton, and that's second gank now to the top side that's been denied here from Pun. That's early resource that Penguin has put on the map. In the previous 2 games, has had a large amount of impact across all things, but this game, it just hasn't been happening. They haven't been able to get Hero out of the kind of trudge of a laning phase that is this top side. And that also means that Fook1's been farming up. You can see the Diffie and the Jiffy in terms of the CS score right now. They're going to double down on the top side pressure. They're going to shut out Pun a little bit. But this is, again, Pun's kind of MO is taking a lower econ, taking a lower resource in a game, and still having a pretty solid effect. And if it means that Yato gets better plays, bottom lane gets better plays, then maybe we're in a good place.
Let's be honest, the Pun angle is just to pick Renekton. There's a cleanse dropping down. Surely Artemis is going to fall. The bailout will buy some time, but not enough. Eddie picks up first blood for Team Secret. Rono on the run, and Zuhao will make it too. Fook1 makes his way towards the bottom side, trying to get onto Eddie. Time, but not enough. Fook1 will pick 1 kill back up. Now looking for Zuhao. Oh, the surge. The Shadow Surge not quite in range of Zuhao for Yato to dive in.
Really tragic. Again, how many times in this series have we seen this bottom lane just get lost by Artemis and whoever his support has been? It's been, Huber for the majority of this laning phase. And now back to top side, we see more pressure being applied there by Penguin. This time, I don't think Pun's got an easy way out.
It's the 3rd gank in the top lane in the 3rd game of the series, and this time Pun will fall.
See, we've put so much into a number of players on Team Secret, right? The heroes of this series, like we've been establishing as being early game, we've established as being like top side of the map because Hero's been great, Artifact has been great. The fact that Eddie and Zuhao have been stomping out Artemis in the laning phase just in the pure 2v2, to me, makes them the best players inside of the series. Taking the MVP from the previous split, taking what is supposed to be the best ADC of this split, and not just removing him from the game in the earlier phases, but actually generating advantage against him is something we never would have expected of this series. Of all the things and all the ways that Team Secret can win a game like this, the last thing I think we could have actually anticipated was Artemis getting beaten down this hard in the laning phase consistently. Eddie and Zoo have been able to do it. Here, getting punished underneath the mid tower, unfortunately.
Thanks for that caster curse, Rebel. That's exactly what Eddie needed right there. Okay, but Cerberus do pick up the kill, and you mentioned about being able to beat Artemis, and back when we were in the winter split just a couple of months ago, you know, this was a test for any bottom lane that we came across, was if you're a good bottom lane, how well do you do against Artemis and Ron OP? And sure, Eddie and Zoo, how this is their first game against Artemis and Ron OP, because it had been Huber until now. But the Rift Herald has been started up. The focus from Cerberus, and down goes Penguin. Instantly, Cerberus are looking to party here in Game 3. The fear on to Zuhao will force him away, but this time, Cerberus will get the Rift Herald. The first time in this series, they pick up that opening Rift Herald.
I am a bit lost about what the anticipation was here from Team Secret, because they were still a ways out from getting Eddie back after the pick in the mid lane, and all 5 members from Cerberus did show. I think 4 members in the river and 1 member in mid lane after everything was kind of taken into account. So why exactly is Team Secret walking into the river with multiple melee champions attempting to like 50-50 the Rift Herald this early? This is a rare kind of boneheaded mistake coming out from the side of Team Secret, right? This is something where like you smack your head and you go, why did we do that in the first place? This is something that Team Secret prides themselves on not doing, as opposed to most other VCS teams who have done it at least a handful of times over the course of the split. This is the one thing that we actually pride Team Secret on, and here we are, making this mistake very early in the game. They still hold the advantage, especially now, because they're getting 2 plates onto the Jinx in return for that Rift Herald, which that's a lot of gold actually going into Eddie's back pocket, but still, I don't know. Like that's the first real, true, I think, full-on mistake that Team Secret has made in terms of decision-making in this series.
Now, we talked about putting your faith as Cerberus into the old stalwarts of Yaro and Artemis. We talked about bringing back in Pun and Ron OP onto the roster. But let's talk about Fuke1. He's 3-0. And for Fuke1, this is effectively his rookie full split for Cerberus, and it hasn't been good. Let's not lie about that. It's not been a good split so far, but he has so many resources on him now. He's so strong. He has to be able to step up.
Yeah, it's a situation where now they have to put a bunch of faith in their young jungler to be able to actually carry out a game like this, because you've got the Hecarim, you've got a big team fighter, you've got a lot of dive potential, you got a lot of influence across the map in this earlier stage of the game. It's the first time, really, that Penguin hasn't been completely running the jungle position, which is good to see that finally they've been able to establish that to some extent. Honestly, the composition once again revolves around Artemis being able to get gold. I kind of want to see Fuke1 put some more resource into bottom lane, shutting out Eddie and making sure that the bottom lane is going better in your favor. Otherwise, you do run into problems further. But again, like you said, Fuke1 now going to have to show us what he's made of, because this is a situation where their back's up against the wall and he's the one with all the gold right now to be able to change the fate of of Cerberus, my apologies, inside of the series.
You know what they like to say? Pressure makes diamonds, or diamonds are made under pressure. I guess you like your physics. You could go also with stress makes diamonds as well.
I suppose. You have to imagine that Fuke1's under a little bit of stress in a series like this one, especially with how much Penguin has been able to put onto him in this one. But you can see winning situation.
Oh, the Shadow Surge! And Penguin thought he had Artifact to help him out. Artifact will flash forward. The auto's not enough, and the Death Rocket goes wide. Artifact will get run down by Yado, and it's a double kill for the Vex.
Very, very well played out of the mid-jungle position, and this is the first gold advantage that Cerberus has had for the entirety of the series. This is the first time that we're seeing this come through. Hero, in a position where he thought he was going to be able to actually make something happen, he's going to try to play into Fuke. It's not going to be enough.
D-Knight ticks down, and it is a shutdown for Hero, and the gold is even. Okay, it's slightly in favor of Cerberus, but it is practically even. And our analyst desk asked for a close game. They wanted one close game, and we are getting it now.
Oh, actually TP to top lane now, Artifact. Oh, okay, not quite able to actually catch out Pun before he's able to slink away on the Renekton pick. This is, again, another kind of mistake. Penguin coming into the jungle trying to play up against Fook 1. He goes for the red buff steal. He's able to sneak out, but the Shadow Surge had hit him before he was able to get through, and so the double dive gets him on top of that. Artifact also came remarkably close to killing off Fook 1. I thought that was going to do it, but unfortunately the red buff stopped ticking right there, and that meant that the play was completely over. Hero at least got the one trade kill, which was nice. I thought they were going to be able to trade back onto Hero, and that was going to end up being a 3-for-1 where Yato picked up 3 full kills, and that is disastrous because, again, he's a very talented Vex player. It hasn't showed up all that much this split, but in Winter, he was the first one that really acclimated to it, and so this is a game where, especially since Artemis isn't really at this massive gold advantage, that Yato might have been able to actually start taking over.
The Dominus dropped in the top lane. That will buy time for Fook wanted to show up. Now a 2v1 Hero with nowhere to go. The hookshot will take him under his tower and to safety, but Cerberus want to go in. Oh, the adaptive defenses! It's game 1 all over again. Pun will be able to survive, but Hero will not. No Ignite available for Hero as Zuhao gets the kill onto Ron OP in the bottom lane. Now there's a Realm Orb coming through, but it doesn't take Artifact over the Gromp wall. Penguin might still want more, but Artemis is able to hide behind his minion wave.
So now we have so much more interesting of a game, because in previous iterations of this, we had the same bottom side setup coming through, right? We had the bottom lane losing from Cerberus consistently to Eddie and Zuhao, but the problem was the rest of the map was also losing. Right, like you had not only the jungle position kind of getting run through, being down in CS, being down in pressure, but both solo lanes were going well as well for the side of Team Secret, and so there were 5 losing positions. All of a sudden, Pun is doing well at being able to deny some gold, has a bit in the back pocket. Fook 1 is doing great in the jungle. Yato is popping off in this game, has a lot more range to work with than the Rise. He's able to roam a lot more, which means Cerberus is competitive for the first time. Artemis has time to be able to scale up into this game to get some gold into the Zeri and become this menace of team fighting, because Cerberus hasn't fallen completely to pieces yet. They've got a lot of dive potential with Fook 1 and Yato, put pressure onto Eddie as well. So having this gold on Eddie, while valuable and with a Lulu in the back pocket, still hard to kill, but not impossible for Cerberus to be able to work around.
And I want to rewind time and think back to what the analyst desk brought up actually before game 1, which was how Team Secret like to play. And they were bringing up the fact that Secret are very good with a 1-3-1 composition. The fact that Cerberus have been lacking in team fights. You look at Team Secret's composition, and guess what? They can pull off a pretty nice 1-3-1. But we've got an engage in the mid lane. Eddie will flash away, and they look to turn things back around. But the Sonic Wave doesn't land, and Team Secret will just back off. But now they can step forward again and maybe just try to throw down some more rockets.
Eddie, well played right there, just to play extremely defensively around the fact that Fook 1 came running in at complete light speed, tried to catch him up on the traps, tried to cleanse out, had to burn the flash eventually. And the play afterwards would have actually been very good for Team Secret, but Zuhao was able to kind of, or my apologies, not Zuhao, Rado P on the Renato was able to kind of deny a little bit of that with the handshake coming through and preventing any kind of engagement. What is going on here?
Well, there are deaths everywhere. Now a hookshot coming through from Hero. He wants to get a raid for the tactical sweep. Pun will be able to survive, and overall it is Cerberus getting the kill. Now, I know you're looking at that gold lead, Rebel, and you're seeing that Cerberus have a lead, but at 15 minutes on the dot, it was Team Secret who had, I think it was about a 200 goal lead. And yes, I know we brought it in as a joke, but I think it's quite a fun stat, the fact that Team Secret have never lost when they are ahead in gold at 15.
We'll see if they're able to hold that one, because this is perhaps the biggest contest to that, because again, Cerberus now has the gold advantage. Hero is going to turn this back on its head because this tower is going to be quite a bit. And they haven't really shut out Camille, which is one thing to talk about, is that Hero, despite not having to capitalize on 2-3 kill opportunities, haven't been through. Oh, it's just back timing. Oh, no. Oh, it feels bad. Okay. I understand now what happened in the mid lane. And then Hero, again, the Ignite, also barely not killing Pun, who was able to sneak away again with an E. With an E to be able to get away from that situation. But again, Pun has been driven off the wave. Pun has almost died 3 times in the top lane. This does have ramifications on the lane. This does mean Camille is still in a fantastic place to kind of run things. And when you think about, okay, you want to lock down Artemis, you want to lock down Yato, you've got ways to do so with Hero in the right circumstances, where he is in a decent place to side lane or to team fight on this Camille pick.
And we talked about Cerberus putting their faith in old stalwarts, and we brought up the idea of Fook 1 having a lot of resources since he's now 4-1. But let's not forget, Yato, 2-0-3 on the Vex. We know how big Shadow Surges can be, but at the same time, Vex is a bit of a coin flip champion in that sense. You land those Shadow Surges, you get into the backline of Team Secret. It's huge. It's now Fook1 looking to dive in. He gets a 3-man ult down. Penguin's going to be the focus, but Fook1 just getting run down himself. The teleport comes through. The wild growth will keep Hero alive. Eventually, the horse will fall, but now Artifact here in the play as well. Flash away from Yada will keep him alive as Super Mega Death Rocket drops down. And overall, it is a 1-for-1 at top lane for Jungler, and it's an even fight.
Situation where right there, it seemed like Team Secret wanted to take more of an engagement than what they had at the end of that one. Because of the ultimate coming through from Artemis, that was a problem. Now, Eddie can deliver Yada way to the back if they want this, but they don't look like they do.
Well, Penguin fishing. He lands a Sonic Wave onto Artemis. Does he want to go in? He's got no Dragon's Rage, so that might be a little bit too aggressive. 6 kills to 8, and it is Cerberus who, well, are just narrowly behind in gold. But here's something that we should bring up. This game, Cerberus has been able to get a lot of objective control. They've been able to pick up Drakes. They've been able to pick up a Rift Herald. And if they get one more Drake, they are onto Soul Point.
And not to the avail of their gold advantage, because this was the sacrifice in game number 1. They went up 2 dragons very early, but they dropped a 6k gold advantage, and it meant that Team Secret were able to just team fight them into oblivion. This is not the case. You saw right there. Despite Team Secret actually having solid posturing, solid positioning for a team fight, they couldn't work their way through. This was a dive potential from Fook1, played perfectly, if I might add, by Penguin to be able to kick him into the wall, get a bunch of burst damage, drive him off to the side. The W is the only thing that kept Fook1 alive forever. I also wasn't a big fan of the Renata ultimate coming through, the CC that actually lined up everything. But look at where they're at inside of a fight like this. Artemis powers up with the ultimate, and all of a sudden, like, he's taking over the fight. He's got too much range, too much through damage, and nobody on Team Secret can sit there and kind of stand against him. They had to find a way to burst out, Artemis in a fight, be able to put somebody on top of him, because Hero wasn't able to do it, and Penguin was too concerned with Fook1 in that fight to be able to do that, and Eddie isn't quite powerful enough to be able to do it as an own yet.
The Shadow Surge doesn't land. A flash handshake onto Zuhao, and a Renata ult burnt as well. All for absolutely nothing. Okay, sure, they got the Lulu flash, but that is all Team Secret. Just looking to play with this 1-3-1 right now.
Yes, being able to capture resources in every single lane is a benefit here from the Rise and the Camille being able to side lane effectively. But you have the problem of their fishing consistently to try to find Eddie again and again, and be able to find Zuhao again and again. Haven't been able to actually kind of full capsule, utilize this to the best of their abilities. A teleport on a mid tower feels like that's going to go to waste.
Oh, Pun gets in time, but the hookshot comes through. Hextech Ultimatum dropped down, but down goes Hero. Look how low the members of Cerberus are. There's no reset for the Jinx. Eddie throwing out more rockets. Artemis down to half health, and it is Cerberus who get a kill for nothing. But when you look at the health bars overall, it feels like Team Secret won the fight.
Team Secret dropped 2 members completely low. If there was enough mana bar on Eddie, or if they had a clear angle on it, it feels like the Super Mega Death Rocket could have won that fight. To the point where, like, I feel like a Super Mega Death Rocket or a single kill would have led to an additional auto or 2 onto Artemis, and that would have prompted Penguin to go in and find a kick, and that would have eliminated Artemis from the fight, almost certainly leading to a second tower going down as well. But unfortunately, Team Secret, I don't think they're able to find it. Eddie, instead of being able to actually make that happen, it ran out of mana, ran out of the ability to kill somebody. You can see they put the blue buff on him, which I think is the correct choice, while Rise usually takes that one. The rockets having to be rained down for the additional range and AoE inside of fights have actually left Eddie pretty scrapped for resources when it comes to like the back half of a fight, where like Artemis begins to take over with the ultimate. And so that means that the position that Eddie's been in is that the rockets need to come out, but he doesn't have the mana for them. So hopefully this does help that around this dragon, which it looks like Team Secret once again want to fight.
Yada teleporting into the mid lane. We're going to have a 5v5 fight over the Drake, and it would be a Drake that would take Cerberus to Soul Point. Artemis flashing forward. He gets the CC down onto Ron OP. Hero's incredibly low. Goes golden as the electrical shot comes through. Artemis is on the run, but the damage just isn't there. And Team Secret are going to get 2 kills. They're looking for Artemis, but Artemis will flash out to safety. And it is Secret who get 2 for nothing. And surely Cerberus won't be able to contest this Drake.
This has got to be one of my favorite positions that Team Cerberus is at, or my apologies, Team Secret has actually taken in this one. Because if you looked at the timers on the ultimates, right before the takeover of the Renekton ultimate, right before the takeover of the Hecarim ultimate, they went for the full-on engagement. They went for the flash-in with Artifact, with the Everfrost, and unexpectedly took a fight before Cerberus were able to get their bearings back. They wait and fight in the river. There's more ultimates. There's more tools for the frontliners of Cerberus. You can see ultimate's not quite ready. They jump in immediately. The ultimate from Ron-OP actually wasn't bad to try to stall things out. I think it could have been a lot worse if that ultimate weren't used properly. But you can see also the reset angle. As soon as the Hecarim went down, Artemis was 1 auto attack from dying right there. Eddie thankfully catching up that the Everfrost would have stuck him under the tower, likely meant that the dragon doesn't go over to Team Secret. But you could see the team fighting. That right there was a fantastic tracking of cooldowns coming out from Secret that led to them being able to take that advantage, taking back a little bit of the gold lead in the game, being able to slow down the dragon stacking and showing that they can team fight very effectively.
The dragon stacking has been slowed, and Artifact has been able to complete his mana item, or the tier item, I should say, the Thimble Winter being completed. Right now, Secret are in the lead when you look at gold, but the game is dead even, right? This game is not Secret's to lose, it's not Cerberus's to lose.
It feels like you're in a position as Team Secret where your team fighting is superior, but you're not in a significant enough gold advantage to really take advantage of that fact by leveraging it into fights again and again. Cerberus are in a position where like they have ways to win 5-on-5 fights, so they're not adverse to taking 5-on-5s, but they haven't been able to find a way to make it actually like come together in one really winning situation. Now, they are very close. As soon as Artemis breaks the next item point, I think they can make very aggressive plays and let Artemis begin to fight a front to back, basically of his own volition. And at that point, I like things start to get a lot more crazy because again, it's about being able to contest Artemis's position in a fight for Team Secret, as opposed to what it has been before, where like the positioning of Eddie has been tested by divers and he's had to be defensive. They've had to play around him quite a bit. But there's a position here where like Artemis will eventually really take an event the aggressive positioning, begin to actually play on a very forward foot. And at that point, Cerberus's team fight looks a lot different than I think it does right now. Not quite at that point, but like you said, we're pretty much dead even in gold. Nobody has a really definitive advantage at this game. Feels like first Baron is really going to be that real tipping point. Like that is going to be the point where one of these teams takes an advantage, because both these teams clearly want to take 5-on-5s. So that's a lot of gold that will be shifted if you end up winning a 5-on-5 around the Baron and take that Baron buff for yourself.
Yeah, and I brought up the idea at the start of the game when we saw all of the skirmishing in the bottom lane that this doesn't feel like a Cerberus who are at match point. It doesn't feel like a Cerberus that are scared to play, that feel like their lives are on the line. This feels like a revitalized, re-energized Cerberus that are ready to fight toe-to-toe with Team Secret. It feels like a game one of the series.
I agree 100% that this has a more of a feeling like a game one. Not in a position where like Cerberus feels desperate that they have to fight against everything, that they give nothing up. It feels like they're more willing to take risks. It feels like they're more willing to challenge positions against Team Secret. This is how I feel like they should have been playing most of the series. And off the back of it is the fact that Pun got a neutralizing pick. Fook1 probably got the best jungler for his back pocket. Like Yato is feeling good about his position, was able to do much better early than we've seen previously. And Artemis, while falling to the wayside effectively in the beginning of the game, has not really been put in the dirt all too badly inside of this one, is still very, very effective. The Zeri is starting to ramp up with the Trinity Force and the Titanic Hydra completed. So the team fighting is going to come to fruition as well. So you're feeling good about the position that Cerberus is in for the first time over the course of this series. Even though they are down 1,000 gold, they still have a lot of ways to actually make things happen, and they have a lot of playmaking in the right positions. They've got a lot of veterancy in a team like this, so it's nice to be able to kind of build around Fook1 like that, because when you've got somebody like Artemis to carry a fight, somebody like Yato to challenge background, somebody like Ron OP for the counter engage, you're able to rely on a lot of them to make really important decisions effectively, especially when they've been in situations like this in playoffs before.
Now, I want to take a moment to really just kind of slow this cast down and take an opportunity to really let the atmosphere of this game sink in, because there is a Baron up, and you talked about the importance of the 5v5 fight. You talked about this Baron being the potential tipping point. What are we really looking for in this upcoming fight, a fight that could potentially determine the game?
So both ADC's positionings have been challenged from both teams consistently over this one. Zuhao is a back pocket to Eddie, and Ron OP, of course, is the back pocket to Artemis, making both of them a little bit difficult to work with. You've got a lot of counter engage in the Renata. You've got a good amount of counter engage in the Lulu as well. And both teams have significant threats to members of the other team with like dive potential. You've got Vex, you've got Hecarim, and on the other side, you've got the Lee Sin and you've got the Camille. This is actually relatively similar team compositions in that regard. The one thing that Cerberus leads in that regard is actually frontline. I feel like the Hecarim building a lot more tank items, as well as the Renekton being a little bit better in terms of being able to throw in front of members of the team, does make it a little bit easier for them to just sit there and soak damage for a little bit longer. But it also means that Team Secret has more damage, both in side laning, which is the one sacrifice that Cerberus has made, is that they don't really have fantastic side laners to respond against the Rising Camille. But also, if somebody were to break into the background, breach into Artemis, into Yado, a lot more of those defensive resources for the champion have to be burnt just because of how much kill threat there actually is.
And look at how much respect Eddie and Zuhao are giving. They know that Fuquan is out of vision and searching for flank, searching for a way to get on top of this bottom lane duo, but unsuccessful so far. All the while, Hero just split pushing in the side lane, trying to force Cerberus to try to answer his push, and then maybe Team Secret could have a window to start up the Baron Nashor.
Yeah, set up right now actually in a good position to ease the wave because it's slightly in favor of the side of Team Secret because it's on the other side. Gonna have a little bit more push here if Hero decides to sit here. He's got the TP. He's also able to take a fight against Pun for the most part because I don't think Pun is done with the Death Stance, so the armor isn't quite there yet. Instead just has the stopwatch potentially to utilize. This is also preventing more resources from going into one lane, which is nice. They're playing on 3 lanes, drives Yado into another position of the map where Yado can't fish with the Shadow Surge alongside Fuquan, which we saw them do, I think, 2-3 times into Eddie in the mid lane, which led to, I think, only the 1 kill against Zuhao, which is a little bit tragic because you obviously want more from those types of things, but they obviously know that they're capable of doing that. And so right now, Team Secret's playstyle of having the 1-3-1 and splitting them up more, hopefully is preventing that from coming through. Hopefully is buying more time for Eddie to become a really true primary carry inside of this game where they can respect him. His damage is going to be high enough to rip through Fuquan, through Pun on that front line before accessing Artemis when they get to the back.
We've spoken about a lot of players so far, but I feel that one player is Fuquan and goes in with the Onslaught of Shadows, but it's only a 2-man ult, and Cerberus are forced away almost instantly. Penguin lands a Sonic Wave, goes to Yado, who flashes out to safety as Shurelius has been dropped. Cerberus will back away from the jungle, and this means that Team Secret just turn towards the ocean, and it will be uncontested as well.
Super Mega Death Rocket, it was the only ultimate that was burnt. And again, both Pun's ultimate, which keeps him tanky, and Fuquan's ultimate, which is the primary engage for the side of Cerberus, were burnt prior to the dragon positioning being taken. And it meant that Team Secret was very quick to the punch. They're actually going to do it again. They're going to say, hey, you have no frontline ultimates, which means that you have no way to contest us unless you go very deep with your damage. And it means that we can play a lot more reactive. So we're on the Baron first. You're going to look for a flank angle. We're taking this so fast, though, right now.
Well, it is a Cerberus to go in for the flank. The Baron has already been secured. Fuq will fall, but he will be kept alive. He'll die once again. 1 OP is so incredibly low. The Rune Prison dropped down, and Eddie is on the side looking for potentially 1 OP, but Cerberus just get wiped. It's a double kill for Artifact, and in Game 3 of the series, with Cerberus's lines on the ropes, it is Team Secret who take an ace for 1.
It is a situation where Team Secret, they knew there was nothing to be done from Cerberus. They don't have the ultimate to be able to make this work. So they say, okay, let's fight us, right? We will set up in the Baron pit. We will sit here and you will fight into us and we will take that challenge. We will take that fight as soon as you bring it. And that's exactly what happened. Eddie dropped a good amount of damage in the rockets before they had to change kind of priority into the pits, but the rest of the fight was already disastrous. There was nothing for them to accomplish. The Baron buff got ripped through. First off, this was almost unexpectedly fast, I think, from the side of this team. But look at everybody else. Artifact, completely untouched. Took the entire brunt of the engagement. Took no damage during that time. I thought this was looking good right here, but Hero still had the Guardian Angel. Artifact was still up. Penguin went into Zonius, and all of this was spent so that Eddie could get tested in the backline. Didn't even find the Jinx because he was able to flash over the back of the Baron wall. All of this from Cerberus was supposed to be about the team fight. They have to play around the cooldown of their engagement from Fuq1, from Pun being able to frontline. But when those are down, they don't have the same diving capability. They don't have the same way to set up anything but a front to back for Artemis, who just didn't have the damage to get through all these members, didn't have the positioning to get through all of the damage that was brought out from Team Secret.
We've spoken about a lot of players so far this series, but there is one player that we haven't talked about and I really do want to talk about, and that is Zuhao. Let's not forget, he is a former Cerberus player, and he wasn't a support for Cerberus, he's a jungler. He role-swapped into the support role, playing against his former team, and on the brink of being able to take them down in a 3-0.
This is the first full split at support for Zuhao, which is something that we talked about. This was the first full competitive split for Fruk 1. Technically, this is the same for Zuhao, where he played a lot inside of Winter and did good. We were singing the praises of Zuhao quite a bit because we were like, okay, he subbed in the middle of the split and had better performances than we thought. And we were like, okay, maybe this is something to build on. And clearly Team Secret agreed because they kept Eddie and Zuhao and replaced the rest of the team. And now look at them stomping out the Winter champions with their ex-jungler at the support role. And he's been able to do a lot more creative things. That's a nice dive into the backline, though.
Ukwan has come in from the flank, and Eddie has been fit. He's going to go golden. That's going to give Penguin a chance to go in onto Artemis. But Artemis now flashing forward, looking to get the kill onto Eddie. And he does it, but it doesn't matter. Team Secret somehow still win the fight. Yana in a 1v3 can't make magic happen. And that was a realm orb right into the mid lane. There is going to be nothing that Pun can do about this, as Team Secret will take down the Nexus Towers, and Team Secret will take a clean 3-0 against the Winter Split champions, and they'll face Saigon Buffalo in the Spring Split semi-finals.
That was about as mean a haymaker as I think that Fook one could have thrown. I want to give him props beyond belief because he got into backline, almost brought down Eddie in one fell swoop, but they let him reset Milky. They let him get a kill on the rocket. He kited backwards, got an additional kill, threw in additional damage before going down, and they spent so much trying to get that kill, they weren't able to work their way through the rest of the fight. The rest of the champions with damage, after the Jinx dropped everything, were able to kill off Artemis, able to kill off the backline, and that's all that was necessary. Team Secret making it look easy. Cerberus did what they could. They looked a lot more competitive as the series went on, but Secret was truly destined to be the champion today. Truly destined to meet Saigon in that best of 5 next week sometime, to be able to compete for that championship title up against GAM when the time comes.
And this split, we've been talking about how Team Secret have been leveling up all split long. They were the gatekeepers until they took down Cerberus, and they continue to get better and better. Rebel, you're American, you're a baseball fan, you might get this reference. This is Cerberus, and this is Team Secret. 1, 2, 3, you're out!
Was that like a...
Well, that was definitely one way to end the game. Team Secret with a 3-0. I mean, one of us predicted it. The two of us were cowards and thought maybe they'd throw one game, but all of us knew that Team Secret were going to come out on top. And my word, they just did it in emphatic fashion your way.
Yeah, you can say that again. I do agree with what the casters were saying in the middle of the game when it was a very close affair. This did not really feel like desperation from Cerberus. They did try again. They did try to get as close to Winter Split roster as possible. It still wasn't enough, and that's honestly more a sentiment to how well Team Secret played, especially this last game. Very few throws, and just a super impressive performance from all of them.
Yeah, clockwork. I mean, you're the Team Secret lover. How are you feeling?
I am. I'm feeling pretty great. They did even better than I expected. I predicted a 3-1, and they didn't even let one game slip. Not only that, all the mistakes, all the potential pitfalls that they would run into, and I talked about them. Almost none of them showed, and this looks really solid from a macro perspective, from a lane perspective, and mechanically, all their players are looking probably the best they've had in all their careers, probably. And I don't know, at this point, I said it before, but this makes even more important to say now after this 3-0, this team will really not let Buffalo just go to MSI like that. They will take it to them.
I mean,
this makes me just so much more hyped for next week. It's only 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, whatever. Next Friday, and the semifinal should be such a banger because this was just the appetizer, and one of the two dishes was well served and tasted amazingly. The other one, a little bit, maybe a little bit past its expiration date. So next week we should really meet two amazing options, and I'm already getting so excited for that matchup.
Before we stop talking about this matchup, we want to highlight some of the really standout players from Team Secret. One of which was, of course, in the mid lane. It was Artifact and Clockwork. You have a play, a production. I might be jumping the gun here. Yell at me if I am. We have a play that you wanted to point out that just highlighted how confident he is.
Absolutely, yes. And here they're like kind of posturing for this dragon. A normal VCS team would just run into the dragon. Artifact, though, sees the opportunity, puts down his crowd control, the fight initiates, and from here, the expert play from Penguin and Eddie just, kiting back at times and engaging and disengaging when it needs. This team fight is the first crucial point that then starts, unbalancing the game really in favor of Team Secret. I'll show it again. How Artifact's Flash basically changed the whole flow of the game, catching Cerberus split in two here. That was an incredible play. This level of expertise, like noticing such a small window to press the buttons and just go in, this level of awareness is peak Artifact. I don't think we've ever seen Artifact playing to this level, and I really want to see. I maybe jumping the gun. He still has Froggy and Kati on his path, but I really want to see this player against international competitors.
Well, for me, Artifact is just the definition of decisive. You pointed it out in this clip, and he is the leader of the team. He's really grown into this role. He's amazing at these snap decisions we talked about in the last pregame. They're just instantly on the same page, and I have to think it's him calling these shots as well. We don't quite know. We don't have the insight. Maybe a secret member can actually confirm this later. But it just looks like the impetus is on him, and he makes stuff happen. He's the most aggressive, assertive, and decisive mid laner when it comes to these engages. He's different than Froggy. Froggy does it a little bit differently. So that matchup, once again, I'm teasing already, but that's going to be a cool mid lane matchup. But yeah, what a carry performance for him. He's really grown into one of the MVP contenders, and today he didn't shut up. He just put another amazing performance in to maybe question our MVP voting a little bit.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I think some people definitely did vote for him for MVP. Maybe Marby talked about it on the podcast. Maybe she was right after all. She often is, after all. Looking forward though, we do have another clip coming up, but we're just getting it ready. But let's look forward a moment against their matchup for Saigon Buffalo. How do we actually think they match up? How do we think they'll go up against the much harder opponent of the Buffalo?
Personally, I can't wait to see this solo lane matchup. Hero will definitely meet a worthy opponent in Hasmed, so that will probably be, in my opinion, what makes or break the series. But also, Artifact and Froggy, they will need to basically play into each other's weakness, meaning that Froggy sometimes drops waves to go and help BJ go and roam, and Artifact can really take advantage of that with pushing into the mid or pinning him into his lane and prevent him from doing that. So this lane will also be crucial. Everything will revolve around solo lanes, which is something that we've been waiting for a long time. Like when the solo lanes dictate the pacing of the game, I don't know. That's a very lovely state of the meta, in my opinion.
And now we do actually have this second clip, and you wanted to break this one down because it illustrates so many things that you always talk about.
Well, I started this broadcast with my little segment on Cerberus' team fighting, and this is really the situation in Game 3. Also with the team in terms of lineup that's closest to the winter performance. So you think the team fighting would be great again, but this really shows in a few seconds that the team fighting is just not on the same level anymore. And once again, I want you to keep your eyes on Artemis. To be fair, he's Zanzeri, a little bit more dive-focused champion, doesn't have to be protected all the time, but he really overcommits in this fight too, and Eddie has an amazing Jinx flash at the end of this too. You can see Cerberus actually engaging from two different sides, and this, once again, the start of the fight looks pretty promising for them. They get a lot of members pretty low, but Eddie is free to fight. Now they finally turn on Eddie, and they commit absolutely everything on him. Artemis especially flashes to try and get Eddie. And this is just the exact opposite of how they played Teamfight and Winter Split and how they became champions of the VCS. Instead of protecting their ADC, they try to dive on the enemy ADC, and that's just really not the way Cerberus as a team excelled. Once again, they got wiped in this fight. This really opened up, or this really closed the game, I should say, and really eradicated all the doubts that were still maybe creeping in for Secret. This really was the fight that opened up the rest of the game, and yeah, Cerberus just not living up to their team fight prowess from Winter. I hope they can come back. I love to see their team fights. I was talking so much about their formation and how they move together, how they're so cohesive and can even penetrate like a gum setup. But now, right now, today, and the whole split, they're just not the same. Their journey ends today, and their team fighting needs to be improved for summer.
It really does. I mean, Cerberus, I think they've got to go back to the drawing board. Fourth simply isn't good enough for them, and let's be honest, they scraped into fourth. SBTC was nipping at their heels. One or two things goes the other way, and they don't even get the chance to play today. Clearly, just not good enough from an org we expect more from. But Team Secret has been so impressive. Let's have a look forward at the rest of our playoffs because we do have the brackets available, so we can put those up on screen because, of course, we now know who will be headed out to the savannah to hunt themselves some buffalo.
Almost the final, right? Like we
Almost.
know the title gets decided on Sunday, but Galm is coming in as the heavy favorites. And maybe if Secret is able to sweep Saigon Buffalo, we can have a G2 lower bracket ish run, and they can actually challenge Gum as well. I'm still expecting Gum to just smash the final, but it doesn't matter because we're actually playing for the same stakes almost in the semi-final, because whoever wins the semi is confirmed for MSI, no matter the result of the final. So for international fans that are going to look at the VCS and want to find out which team is going to attend MSI, the semi-final is actually more important. So we have two super cool series, two exciting matchups. Whoever ends up going to the final, I think, is a worthy opponent as well. The underdog, but still hopefully able to challenge Gum there. So next week is just going to be even better.
100% it is. And to close it out, early predictions? Clockato?
It's gonna be hard. In my opinion, it will. Okay, so this is not really a hot take. It will go to the distance. It will go 5 games. In my opinion, it will be Secret to go to the finals. And I will also take a slight page from Yuwei's history book because I don't think that any of these teams ever won a best of 5 against GAM, right? And yeah, to do so, in order to do so, they first need to take each other on, which is something that rarely happened in VCS. Like very often, we've had 2 teams that were above everyone else, and this time, probably for the first time, we're having actually 3 teams that look really solid. So this is a first, at least from my experience, since I started following this amazing region. And like it's all in the next best of 5.
Your way? Do you have that hope?
You're asking the hard-hitting questions. I need more time to prepare this.
No.
My feeling right now is still SGB. This might also be a little bit biased, but I think one huge advantage SGB has compared to Cerberus, for example, is the drafting phase. I mean, I've come out and said this so many times. Ren is my favorite drafting coach, and Taki, of course, is also a big factor in those drafts. They're able to flex absolutely everything. They're able to change the whole outlook of the draft. I think this is going to really challenge Team Secret's perception, and I think it hinges a lot on the top lane matchup. If Hasmid has a good day and smashes Hero into the ground, I don't think there's much Team Secret can do to win these games. If Hero is able to step up and actually challenge Hasmid and still be an asset to his team, then Secret could really overcome. So I'm right now leaning 3-1 Buffalo, I believe. But it could also just as well go to Secret. And yeah, these 2 teams are very exciting.
It is very, very exciting, of course. But with that, our day draws to a close. And I'm a host, so I don't have to do a prediction. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. It was a 3-0. It was the shortest possible day, but I think we had fun regardless. I think our casters, Rebel and Milky, elevated that series to new heights. Good job, you two. Of course, I want to thank our producer, Spoods, as well, who powered through some really annoying technical issues, got through it perfectly. Everything you see on screen, except for what's in these boxes, is all him. So please do give him your thanks. He is the MVP of our stream, no question. With that, I bid you good night, and we will see you next week for the big last two.